Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This short presentation is about the permanent values taken from the Quran. Our individual and collective values in which we believe influence and define each one of us and influence our behavior. Each one of us is a complete unit in terms of our physical body and our thinking. In this presentation, I will briefly outline some of the permanent values detailed in the Quran. I've also noted some of the references of the chapters and the verses with each value. Broadly speaking, there are two types of values: permanent values and relative values. Absolute or permanent values, these do not change with time or place. They always remain the same. For example, these are equally applicable to the first and the last man on this planet. Relative values, these vary between individuals, families, communities, nations. These can be further grouped under cultural, ethical, organizational, family, group, team, party, national. The first value is the concept of God. The concept of God as revealed in the Quran is an external objective standard for us to follow as far as it relates to the development of the human self. The Quran says, "Don't be like those who forgot Allah and He made them forget their own selves." The next value is equality as a human being. At birth, we are equal, and the same is true when we die. We know when a child is born, it is equal to any other child anywhere in the world. It doesn't bring anything with it, and when we die, we again don't take anything with us. The Quran declares that mankind was one community. The next value is respect as a human being. Every human being possesses a self which has the attribute of free will. This entitles every human being to equal respect so that there can be no discrimination due to reasons of family, tribe, race, community, nationality, religion, gender, color, language, culture, tradition. The Quran declares, "Verily, we have honored all children of Adam." Because of possessing this self, we need to be respected as individuals. Freedom. Since every human being is born free, then she should remain free. According to the Quran, freedom means that no one can extort obedience from another human being. Only the Quranic values should be followed, as it is only by operating within the confines of these values that the self can develop. Freedom to choose. Responsibility for the act of a human being is determined by his own volition and intent. It is our choices in life which define us at every point in time. The Quran invites us to use the power of our intellect and reasoning to acquire evidence to then make informed decisions. The next value is righteousness as a criterion. The level of development of the self and individual conduct should be the criterion for higher responsibility within a society. The best among us is the one who is most righteous, or in other words, who opts to stay within the permanent values. Tolerance. Freedom to choose means that we need to be tolerant and accept the choices made by others in their lives. The Quran asks us to understand this at a fundamental level. That is, by being in possession of a self with freedom to choose, we need to recognize this state exists in others and accept it. The next value is existence of human self. We all have a strong sense of identity and are aware of our existence. We have self-consciousness and the ability to make decisions. Our inner attributes of emotions, thinking, memory, help us to live our lives, and in the process we gain experiences which helps to develop our self-concept. So self is our self-concept at any point in time, which we create within our personality over a period of time by using our thinking. Accountability. Human beings possess free will, emotions, and the ability to think about thinking and memory. Our thinking and decisions leave an impact on ourselves. That is, it changes our personality and the way we think and act. The Quran declares that every cause has an effect in human daily living. This is called the law of requital. The purpose of human creation is that none of our deeds remain unaccountable and none of us is dealt with unjustly. Responsibility cannot be shared at the level of the self. At an individual level, each one of us is a complete unit. Therefore, none can share our responsibility at this level. The Quran asks us to follow this value in our interactions as well. Free will. The use of this value is up to us as individuals to use by exercising our freedom to choose. However, our choices have consequences and we are accountable for these. The Quran tells us that this is your word and you can live your life as you wish. However, we can select a particular course of action, but we do not have the choice to alter the effects of making a particular selection in a particular direction in our life. Warning and admonition. We need to warn each other about the consequences of what we think, say, and do in our lives. The Quran asks us to think of the consequences of every action we take in our lives, both in the short term and the long term. The Quran calls its message a warning to mankind to be accepted or rejected, and then to live with the consequences of those choices. The next value is justice. When dispensing justice, no distinction is allowed between friend and foe, us and others. The changing of Allah's laws is declared to be injustice by the Quran. For example, if we live our lives under the influence of relative values, that is injustice as well. For example, one country to another country, we are subjected to different laws, and this is injustice. Next value is good deeds replace the effects of bad deeds. Just like the treatment for a disease, this value says that if we have done something bad, then we must replace the effects with good deeds. If we have done wrong to someone, we must compensate any loss done to others and also apologize for that. What is good for mankind remains on earth. This is a value which is applicable at a collective level, and it has long-term consequences. In fact, the rise and fall of nations comes under this. So whatever good we do, we must do it on a global level for everyone. Next value is knowledge. The Quran has referred to both perceptual and conceptual knowledge and asked mankind to explore both the visible and the invisible worlds to understand the truth and the purpose behind human creation. Science. The Quran asks us to make efforts to discover both the physical and the psychic worlds and bring them into use for the good of mankind at large. Aesthetic sense. As human beings, we have an aesthetic sense, an appreciation for beauty. The Quran acknowledges it and respects this and considers it as a necessary element in the growth and development of human personality. However, the pursuit of the aesthetic sense should be within the confines of the permanent values. Next value is history as a model. The Quran refers to history very frequently and presents it as an example and links it to the rise and fall of civilizations with a view to learn lessons. This helps us to study the permanent values and see that violations of these values leads to wars and conflicts and leads to a waste of valuable human time. Subsistence. Basic necessities for all human beings must be met, and an environment should be created for the development of the human self. Meeting the physical needs of the human body are essential before intellectual reasoning and creative activity can be brought into play. This is the reason why the Quran declares that the aim is to establish an economic system in which there is no accumulation of wealth. Reward is for the work and not the capital. This value defines the economic system proposed by the Quran. Life is a journey and not a destination. The capital must remain in continuous flow and must not be accumulated. Reward must be for the work and not for the capital. In the capitalist system, the reward is for the capital, which is opposite of this value as explained in the Quran. Patience and perseverance. Since the self takes time to develop, as it has to gain knowledge and overcome the challenges of life, it therefore needs time to build up its inner conviction and strength. It needs guidance as an external criterion of reference to signpost its progress towards its development. An analogy is a seed which needs to be nurtured to grow to its full potential. Next value is no restriction on human movement. The word is available for each one of us and is open to the use of anyone within the remit of the permanent values. No human being owns this word. The fact that with death we leave it all behind proves this. The word is loaned to human beings to use it for a short time only. The Quran declares that He brought forth therewith fruits of your sustenance, then set not up rivals unto Allah knowingly. Next value is relationships. Human beings need the presence of other human beings within individual relationships and at the level of community in order to function, grow, and develop the self. Next value is marriage. Marriage is considered a contract between two adult, equal individuals who live their lives within the confines of the permanent values. Chastity is one of the permanent values within this context, and the Quran demands observance from both men and women. Freedom from fear. For free will to operate effectively, there has to be freedom from fear as this constrains it. The Quran declares that living within the permanent values will eliminate all fears. Freedom from grief. Grief is caused by events affecting human beings within a society. Most events causing grief can be linked directly or indirectly to human actions, for example, economic, wars, oppression, exploitation, slavery. Death. Death is considered a deadline to remind us that we have a finite time to live in this life, and our conduct here in this world will define the status of our next life after death. When we consider the event of death at the level of self, the Quran declares every self shall have the taste of death. This is something very important to consider, that if we look at the body from a self's point of view, or a developed self's point of view, then body has finite time. And it is universal, and which makes it understandable that all physical selves are going to die, while the developed self will move on to the next stage of life. Next value is hereafter. The life of the emerged human self continues beyond death. The emerged human self is one that has reached a minimum threshold as per the Quran, when on balance the effects of the good deeds exceed those of the deeds which have negative effects. These are some of the values taken from the Quran. In conclusion, values define us and influence our behavior. A value will only be effective when accepted through intellectual reasoning and then acted upon to see the outcome, which essentially means that we have understood it and we are willing to follow it. Application of any value in the human world is from individual to collective. The Quran invites us to become models of these values, invite others with a view to resolve human issues on a global basis. These values should form part of our memory to enable us to refer to them frequently. Thank you.